Hello and welcome back to Koala Moon, children's bedtime stories and meditations designed to make bedtime a dream. Let's meet up now with our little koala friend Coco and hear how he and his family celebrate a very special occasion called Bonfire Night. Coco loves Bonfire Night, and his favourite part is watching the fireworks as they zoom into the night sky and fill it with a beautiful array of colours. This is Coco Celebrates Bonfire Night by Gillian Rogerson. Deep in the heart of a faraway forest stood a cosy cabin. Inside the cabin lived a family of koalas. The youngest koala was called Coco. It was November the 5th in Sleepy Forest, and when Coco, the little koala, woke up, he immediately broke into a huge smile and hugged himself in excitement. November the 5th was Bonfire Night, and it was an occasion that was always celebrated in Sleepy Forest. Coco loved Bonfire Night. He loved being outside with his friends and family, eating delicious food, sipping hot drinks, and gazing at the dancing flames of the big fire. Most of all, he loved watching the amazing display of fireworks and seeing the colours lighting up the sky. Even though the bonfire wouldn't be lit until later that day, there was a lot of preparation to do. So Coco jumped out of bed, pulled on his soft dressing gown over his pyjamas, and ran downstairs into the kitchen. His grandpa was already in the kitchen, wearing an apron and standing in front of the large table. There was a variety of baking ingredients lined up on the table, along with mixing bowls and saucepans. Coco said, "Morning, Grandpa. Have you started baking already?"
"Not yet," Grandpa replied. "I was waiting for you. But before we do anything, I need my morning hug."
Grandpa opened his arms wide and Coco ran into them and was wrapped in a warm embrace. After a few moments, Grandpa released Coco and said,
"We've got a lot of baking to do this morning, and we'll need lots of energy. Let's have some breakfast before we start. How about some porridge? I've got some simmering on the stove. Sit yourself down, Coco, and I'll bring it over to you."
Coco pulled himself onto a high seat at the table and watched his grandpa spoon the deliciously thick porridge into 2 waiting bowls. Grandpa put one in front of Coco and gave him a spoon. Grandpa asked Coco what he would like on his porridge: blueberries, maple syrup, or a swirl of chocolate sauce. Coco gave his grandpa a little cheeky smile and asked if he could have a little bit of them all, please. His grandpa nodded and said that sounded like a delicious combination, and he would have the same on his porridge. Grandpa sat opposite Coco with his bowl of porridge. They put plenty of blueberries on top of the porridge and added equal swirls of maple syrup and chocolate sauce. It was a very delicious combination, and the 2 koalas enjoyed every mouthful. Grandpa told Coco that his parents had gone out to visit friends, and that his grandma was already in the forest collecting fallen logs for the bonfire. When their bowls were empty, Coco jumped down from the chair and took the bowls over to the washing up bowl. He gave them a quick clean and then ran back to his grandpa. Grandpa took Coco's apron from a drawer and helped Coco to put it on. Coco washed his paws and told Grandpa he was ready to start making the bonfire night treats.
"Great. Let's begin," Grandpa said. We'll start with the bonfire toffee. I'll tell you what we need and how much. Can you get those ingredients ready for me, Coco?" Coco said he would. Grandpa told Coco what was needed, and the little koala measured out the various ingredients, including soft, dark brown sugar, thick black treacle, and sticky golden syrup. Grandpa took the ingredients and put them in a pan on the stove. He put a chair next to the stove and helped Coco onto it so he could see what was happening inside the pot. Coco watched the ingredients swirl together to create a bubbling liquid. Grandpa used a thermometer to check the temperature, and whilst they waited for the liquid to reach the perfect heat, they talked about what they would do later on. Coco said, "Grandma said I could help her collect some logs. Do you think I'll be able to carry a log on my own this year, Grandpa? I couldn't last year, but I have grown a lot since then." Grandpa put his paw on Coco's arm, smiled and said, "Your muscles are nearly as big as mine. You might be strong enough to carry a log on your own, but ask your grandma first before you pick one up." Coco said he would. He asked Grandpa what he would be doing later. Without any hesitation, Grandpa said, "I'll be having a nap in my rocking chair. You know how much I love my naps. I always feel rested after one. And I need lots of energy if I'm going to be dancing and singing later." Coco frowned and said, "I didn't know there was going to be any singing and dancing." His grandpa grinned. "There will be when I get there. I hope your grandma dances with me." Coco said, "I'll dance with you, Grandpa." Grandpa kissed the top of Coco's head. They stood by the toffee mixture a little longer until it was ready. Then Grandpa carefully poured it into a metal tray and told Coco they would have to let it cool for an hour or so. They moved back to the kitchen table and started getting ready for the next treat they would make, a sticky-topped ginger cake called parkin. Some of the ingredients were similar to those used in the toffee, and in no time at all, Coco had them measured out and at Grandpa's side. Grandpa expertly combined the ingredients in a bowl and put the mixture into a large baking tray and popped it into the oven. He told Coco it would take a while to cook and asked if Coco could help him with the washing up. Coco said yes, and once the washing up was done, Coco asked if he could head out to the forest to help Grandma with the logs. Grandpa said, "Of course, but you might want to get dressed first. You're still in your pajamas and dressing gown." Coco giggled and ran upstairs to get changed. He remembered to brush his teeth too. A few minutes later, the little koala came back downstairs and told Grandpa he was ready to go. Grandpa looked down at Coco, all snug and cozy in his warm coat, woolly hat, scarf, and gloves. He told him to have a wonderful time collecting logs and that he would see him later. Coco said goodbye and raced out of the door. The autumn air was crisp and cool. Fallen leaves lined the path that led into the forest, and as Coco walked over them, they crackled beneath his boots. Some of the last leaves on the trees became free and fluttered and flitted down to the ground. Coco looked up at the clear sky
and hoped it would stay like that all day and night. He skipped through the forest and over to the large clearing where the bonfire celebrations would take place later. There was a pile of logs right in the middle of it, arranged in the shape of a pyramid. Some of his friends' parents and grandparents were adding more logs to the pile. They waved to Coco and said hello. Coco's grandma walked into the clearing carrying a log. She was wrapped up warmly in her cozy coat, hat, and scarf. She smiled over at Coco, and he ran to her. Grandma put her log with the others and then gave Coco a hug. She smiled and said, You smell of bonfire toffee and parkin. Have you had a good time with Grandpa in the kitchen? Coco said he had, and could he still collect logs with her, or had she finished? I haven't finished yet, she said. We need plenty more for the fire. She took Coco's paw, and they headed back into the forest, keeping a lookout for fallen logs. Coco asked Grandma if she thought it would rain that night. He said he hoped it wouldn't. Grandma said firmly, It won't rain. You can trust me on that. Coco said he did trust her. They came across a small pile of branches that had been blown loose from the trees in recent high winds. Coco asked Grandma if they could be used on the bonfire. She said yes, and the two of them collected as much as they could safely carry. Coco said proudly, Grandma, look how many branches I can carry. I must have grown a lot this year. Grandpa said my arm muscles were nearly as big as his now. Grandma smiled down at her grandson and said, yes, he definitely had grown a lot that year. They reached the clearing and added the branches to the pile of logs. Grandma and Coco made a few more journeys into the forest to gather more logs and branches. The morning sped by, and it was soon time for lunch. Grandma had a word with the other grown-ups, and, after a discussion, they decided that the pyramid of logs was now big enough. Grandma said goodbye to everyone and told them she would see them later. She held paws with Coco, and they walked home. Coco kept looking at the sky, wishing for it to grow darker so the celebrations could begin. Grandma noticed what he was doing and said it would be dark soon enough. They reached their cozy cabin and went inside. The air was scented with ginger cake and toffee. Grandpa walked out of the kitchen holding a plate of freshly cooked parkin and said, I had a feeling you two would be home for lunch. Would you like some parkin? Grandma and Coco took off their coats and boots in record time and settled down in front of the fire with slices of the sticky ginger cake in their paws. It was scrumptious. Not long later, Coco's mum and dad came home and said they had walked through the forest and seen the pile of logs in the clearing. They were impressed with how big it was. Coco asked if it was time to go to the bonfire yet. Not quite yet, his mum said. Why don't you draw some pictures of bonfire night to keep yourself busy until it's time to go? Coco thought that was an excellent idea. He collected his paper and crayons and sat down at his little craft table. He drew a huge fire with flickering orange and red flames. He drew his friends standing around the fire, including Camo the chameleon, Fudge the sloth, Prickles the hedgehog, and Adrenaline the tortoise. Then he drew his parents and grandparents next to them all wrapped up warm in their coats and hats. Coco had left space at the top of the paper for fireworks. He tipped the crayons onto the table and used every single one of them to create a magnificent display of fireworks whizzing and zipping through the night sky. He found some empty space on the paper and drew twinkling stars and a big full moon. He felt a light tap on his shoulder. It was his mum. She looked at his picture and said it was amazing, and the fireworks looked like beautiful flowers blossoming in the sky. She asked if she could pin it on the front door so that any passers-by could see it and admire it. Coco blushed a little and said he would like that. Mum proudly pinned the picture on the front door, and then, to Coco's delight, said it was time to go. The koala family wrapped up warmly and set off through Sleepy Forest and towards the celebration area. The sky turned darker, and the sprinkling of stars glimmered and glittered in the velvety sky. Coco wanted to skip along the path, but he'd been given the very important job of carrying the bonfire toffee. Before they had set off, Grandpa had broken up the cooled toffee with a special toffee hammer, and Coco had helped him place the pieces into a large tub. As Coco walked slowly along the forest path with the tub in his paws, he felt like he was carrying the most precious item in the world. A little later, the koalas arrived at the clearing. The animals of Sleepy Forest were all there, including Coco's friends. Tables and chairs had been set up at a safe distance from the fire, and fairy lights were festooned between the branches of trees. Coco carefully placed the tub of toffee on the food table. Grandpa reached for it and took the lid off. The pieces of golden toffee lay inside like valuable jewels. Grandpa held out the tub to Coco and said, "I'd like you to have the first piece, Coco, and then could you offer some to your friends, please?" Coco picked up a piece of the toffee and put it in his mouth. It tasted of treacle and syrup and soft sugar and magical bonfire nights with his friends and family. Coco took the tub and walked towards his friends. His friends loved the toffee as much as Coco did and said it was the best they had ever tasted. Coco's grandpa came over and asked if they would like some hot pumpkin soup or some warm vegetable pie and mushy peas. Seeing the cheeky smiles on their little faces, Grandpa smiled and said they could have both if they wanted. He took them over to the table where hot food was being served and stood by their side as they collected portions of the soup and the pie. Coco and his friends sat together at a table and thoroughly enjoyed their bonfire night food. Coco looked at Camo the chameleon and said, "Your skin is the same color as the sky. I can see the stars and the moon in it. Is it easy to change your colors?" Camo nodded and said he just had to think about colors, and then his skin changed. Coco asked, "Can you change into the color of fireworks?" "Oh, I don't know," Camo replied. "I've never tried it before, but I'll give it a go later." The friends finished their food and then turned around to look at the huge pile of logs and branches. Coco's grandma and some of the other grown-ups were spaced around the bottom of the logs with lit candles in their gloved paws. With great care, they put the candles inside gaps between the logs and then took several steps back. The tiny flames from the candles began to spread through the logs and branches. The flames quickly grew and grew. A silence fell over the animals as they watched the fire grow bigger. Orange and red flames danced and flickered over the wood. The sound of crackling and light popping came from within the pile, and the smoky scent of burning wood perfumed the air. Coco and his friends gazed at the fire, their little faces feeling the gentle warmth of it. The talking began again, and Coco's grandpa came over to the table and asked the young animals if they would like anything else to eat. Perhaps some baked jacket potatoes with melted butter. Coco and his friends had full tummies and said no, thank you. Grandpa said, "Okay, there are plenty of potatoes, so if you get hungry later, you can have some then." Coco and his friends watched the fire a little longer and talked about the fireworks that would be starting soon. Coco hoped they wouldn't have to wait much longer. He gazed at the starlit sky. There wasn't a cloud in sight. Grandma had been right about the weather. She always was. Camo's dad came over to the group and said it was time to watch the fireworks. He gathered the youngsters together and led them over to another area where a group of grown-ups were busy putting the fireworks in place. There was a line of stones on the ground, and Camo's dad said the young animals were not allowed to cross it and could watch the fireworks from right where they were. Coco and his friends nodded solemnly. Some of the other parents and grandparents joined the gathering behind them. Everyone waited patiently. And then the magic began. With a whoosh, the first firework shot up into the dark sky. Up and up it went, higher and higher. And just when everyone thought it had disappeared, there was a burst of vibrant red, orange, and green stars. The stars twinkled and shimmered and lit up the sky. Another burst of colour followed it, and then another, and another, until the sky was full of beautiful firework stars. More fireworks followed, whooshing and zooming into the sky. Fireworks in blue, purple, red, yellow, green, gold, and silver filled the sky. The watching animals oohed and ahed with every firework they saw. Coco looked over at Camo, and his eyes grew wide in astonishment. "Camo," he said, "your skin, it's beautiful." Camo's body was a resplendent reflection of the firework stars that were blooming in the dark sky. Coco's friends looked at Camo and stared in awe at his changing colours. They said he was amazing. Camo smiled shyly and quietly said thank you. The fireworks show continued for a while longer. Coco's eyes started to grow heavy. He put his paw over his mouth to cover up a yawn. His friends did the same. The last firework to zoom into the sky was the biggest and most colourful of all. Clouds of sparkling stars completely filled the sky, lighting up the faces of all those who were watching. The multicoloured stars twinkled and sparkled, glimmered and shimmered. Then the fireworks' sparkles slowly melted away, and the real stars came back into view. The animals of Sleepy Forest gave the organisers of the fireworks show a well-deserved round of applause. It was time for some gentle music and soothing songs. Coco's grandpa was the first one to dance to the music. Coco kept his promise and danced with his grandpa. But the little koala couldn't stop yawning. His grandpa noticed and said it was time they headed home. He picked up his tired grandson and pulled him close. Coco rested his head against his grandpa's chest. Coco noticed his friends were going home too. He waved goodbye and gave them tired smiles. Coco and his family said their goodbyes to the other animals, took one last look at the flickering fire, and then set off through Sleepy Forest, back to their cozy cabin. Coco felt warm and snug in his grandpa's arms. His heavy eyes started to close. By the time the koala family got home, Coco was fast asleep and dreaming about the beautiful firework stars in the sky. Now we're drifting gently from the waking world into the world of dreams. Our body is soft and heavy. Our arms are heavy and our legs are heavy too. Our breathing is gentle and relaxed. Our breath going in through our noses and down into our chests. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Just like the waves lapping back and forth, carrying you gently into sleep. In the waking world, our bodies are busy and active, but as we pass into the world of dreams, our bodies can relax. Let your bodies relax now. Let your eyes relax. Let your fingers relax. Let your toes relax. Feel all the muscles of your body sink down further into your warm and cozy duvet. Feel your body rest heavily down on the firm comfort of your bed. Now feel as your body relaxes how your mind is released. Feel just how free your mind is. The world of dreams is like a playground for your mind. There are swings and roundabouts and slides where your mind can play. In the world of dreams, your mind gets bigger and bigger and fills your sleep with all kinds of joys and wonders and magical stories. And here is something that not many people know, but it's a secret I'm going to tell you. But you're the only one I'm going to tell. When we go to sleep and pass into the world of dreams, we are accompanied by the kindly spirits who live in the dream world. They live on the moon, and when nighttime comes, they float down softly as silk to meet each person who is drifting into sleep. The dream spirits are waiting there for your mind to arrive, and when you get there, they take your hand in theirs and squeeze it gently and guide you through the world of dreams. Isn't that wonderful? To have a guide who can keep you company even as you sleepwalk through the world of dreams. They take you by the hand. They give you a friendly squeeze. They guide you into sleep. The spirits of the dream world ask you, what would you like to dream about tonight? And because your dreams are your very own playground, where you can build and create anything your imagination desires, you can answer however you like. Maybe tonight in your dreams you would like to climb a tree, sit in the canopy, surrounded by tinkling leaves and bathed in dappled moonlight, and listen to the nightingale sing, or the crickets chirrup from the forest floor below. Or perhaps you would like the dream spirits to guide you into a magical world where you can learn how to perform all kinds of wondrous spells and charms. You can go on adventures, flying through the air on your broomstick. The white clouds spread out below you like an ocean of fluffy marshmallows. Or maybe you'd like to visit a magical zoo, full of rabbits and puppies and kittens whose fur is so soft and comes in all kinds of different colours, brown and white and black, but also purple and green and blue. In this zoo you can find all kinds of animals that you can't find in the waking world. Animals people in the waking world say couldn't possibly exist. But they do. They do exist. And do you know why? Because your mind is so powerful and rich and magical that in the world of dreams, anything is possible. Your imagination is an enchanted place. It can create whole worlds out of thin air, out of nothing. Anything your heart desires can be found in the world of dreams. So let your eyelids be heavy. Let your body sink into the warmth of your duvet. Let your body drift into a deep and peaceful sleep. And let your mind float away into the world of dreams. The dream spirits are waiting to guide you through their magical world, their world of wonder, their world of delight. See the soft smiles on their beaming faces. Feel the warmth of their hands in yours. They take you by the hand. They give you a friendly squeeze. They guide you into sleep. Walk with them and let them lead you on magical adventures into the world of dreams. The jungles of green leaves with all kinds of creatures ready to show you their lives. To castles built out of clouds. To rivers bright as rainbows for you to swim down. To crackling campfires next to lakes where the pitter-patter sound of rain sounds like the gentle tinkling of music. Remember to thank your dream spirits for guiding you lovingly through the land of dreams. Say, thank you, dream spirits. And when you say, thank you, dream spirits, the dream spirits will say, thank you back. Because the dream spirits are just as lucky to accompany you through your magical dream world as you are, that the spirits are there to guide you. So let your eyes close. Let the lids fall heavy. Let every part of your body, from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers and toes, be warm and heavy and sleepy. Let your mind slip into the peaceful world of sleep, where anything is possible. good night.